Yeah.
Because how is that the manifestation of Hashem Elohim?
What? Love?
Right? That how is that the expansion of Hashem Elohim Hashem Echad?
How does Hashem Echad lead to Vahavta?
Right.
Okay, these are good questions. Okay, so let's put out some official topics just to recap. What must be discovered or explored? Okay, but kids, we want to bring Mashiach, right? So okay, let's start like that. Let's start. We have this pasuk that says we say it twice a day at least. More if you daven Ma'av early and whatever.
And if you say
Shalamita, right? Okay, kids, it's clearly a very important pasuk, and a lot of times, at least 5 times a day. At least 5 times a day. Maisa, you should know it's actually a pretty interesting thing. The Amunah Rama says, okay, obviously we're talking about Shema. The Amunah Rama says a Murdik Kazach. The Amunah Rama is whoever it was, very Rabbi Rishon. He says the following. He says that really, you know what the pasuk means when it says it means everything you do has to be dedicated to this goal called Hashem Echad. This that Chazal say Shema b'shor shebnei Hashem b'shor shebnei koimim is because they're making life easy for us. So the Indian of Shema is that this is going to be the constant focus of every action you take. That's what the pasuk really means. But the minimum is that at least PM and AM shtalarek, right? And I think the Rambam held like this also. Rambam was after him and was influenced by him, and I think the Rambam also believes that the pasuk really means everything you do is with this in your mind.
There's also an element of everything is Hashem.
Right. No, so here's the thing. It's like someone once told me. It's like interesting. Someone once told me it's very spelled 2 big tzaddikim, Kabbalah and whatever, and they both like told them the same thing about it. Shidduch, like both said the same weird thing that's going to happen. You know. So I said, "Mama's not shver," because they're both thinking about the same exact thing. They're only thinking about Hashem Echad. That's all they think about. So you say, of course, if they think it's the same exact thing, of course they're going to say the same thing. It's not shver.
It's even more. I think you're taking it a step further, right? In the Chumash we spoke about nevuah, right? Nevuah is tuning into the world around you,
right?
Tuning into the rhythm, the voice of the world,
okay,
right? Which is again that's Hashem, the manifestation. Right. So they were tuned into the voice. They heard the same voice.
Correct. Right. But here's the thing. The thing is that Hashem Echad is this pasuk that insists that there's something that pulls it all together. Right? You can't hear different voices. Okay, but kids, so let's start with what we're trying to figure out a bit. So
the question is, if you listen right. If you listen properly and you're hearing the truth, you hear the same truth. The truth is the truth.
I don't know. Why can't you hear different things? I don't know. Okay, but kids are mice like this. I'm not so sure about that. Okay, but let's go like this. What are we trying to figure out? So we want to bring Mashiach. That's Aleph. Now, since we want to bring Mashiach, and let's start with the pasuk, this eschatological pasuk that we say 5 times a day. Pasuk goes Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and Rashi says, which comes from the Sifri, that the meaning of the pasuk is as follows: Hashem, who currently is our God. So we have this God called Yud Geh Vav Kei. He's our God. He's the God of the Jews. And Hashem, but there's a lot of gods. Elohim Acherim, right? There's all these gods. The whole Tanach is full of other gods. One day, there's only going to be one God. Right? That's how Rashi reads the pasuk, no? Hashem shu'at elokeinu v'lo elokeinu u'mos hu asad liyos, the one God.
Everyone's going to recognize the oneness, the unity, the one God.
Yeah, I think it's you're going a little too complicated. You're right, but it's not necessary yet. There are many gods. In other words, what does that mean? Simply stated, there are many things that people worship. Okay, here's the thing. Let's go back a step over here. The pasuk is saying like this. Now there's lots of gods, and we have this God called Yud Geh Vav Kei. One day there's only going to be one God, okay? And that God's going to be Hashem. Now, let's just do a little theology over here, okay? Or a little metaphysics. What do you mean there's many gods? Everyone talks about this. What do you mean lahem acherim? What do you mean there's other gods? Okay? I thought there's only one Hashem. And the truth is, it's steers in Tanach about this. Steers in Tanach whether there are really a bunch of gods and you're supposed to serve Hashem, or there's really only one God. Okay?
It's in Hayat, right? But that's only Hashem.
Right.
It's in
Right. Oh, by the way, that's very interesting.
15 lines later.
Right. I don't want to talk about Shema B'Ram Shemaya tonight, but there's a major difference. I mean, obviously, they're parallel parashas, but at the same time, there's some major differences. The first difference is Shema begins Shema, and V'Hayim Shemaya begins V'Hayim Shemaya. So there's a fundamental shift, which is Shema is taking it as an absolute, and V'Hayim Shemaya is like V'Shekeh no Shalo. Another major difference is that in Shema we assert Hashem Echad, and as you pointed out in V'Hayim Shemaya, it's Elokeim Acherim, which is the opposite of Echad. Famously, the Gemara in Eruvin you got to make sure to get that Dalid right. Don't turn it into a Reish. Echad could turn into Acher, big problem, right? So Elokeim Acherim is the opposite of Hashem Echad. Okay, so are there many gods, or is there only one God? Steers in Tanakh. Now, the Pashto answer is, well, what's a God? What's a God? And this is a very important thing to think about. I think we have to forget a lot of our metaphysics. Okay, forget about metaphysics for a second. Metaphysics is very, very uninteresting to Tanakh, I think. In other words, when we talk about are there many gods or one, we don't really. Here's what we don't care about. We don't care about. Okay, there are various koiches in the world, malachim, so on and so forth. You know what a god is? A god is what people worship. That's what a god is. Okay, so we have to define that word worship. So now the question of are there many gods or is there one God? It really means, is everyone motivated or dedicating their lives? I'm defining worship, okay? Here's how I'm defining worship. Worship means that which you consider to be the most fundamental end and purpose of your being. Everyone's motivated, right? So what are you motivated? What are you most motivated by? If you're most motivated by money, Emerson, then that's your God. Now, granted, you might not be doing Avodah Zarah because you're not actually making an idol, because you're not so sophisticated, because you're not so teef, you're not so religious, maybe, whatever. You know, when people say like, oh, there's like Avodah Zarah, that's true. Because in other words, if you actually consider something to be the most fundamental motivating factor, why you get out of bed in the morning, what makes you not commit suicide, okay? Everyone has something that makes them not commit suicide, right? What is that? What is that? Okay, I'm not talking about if it's laziness or scared. I'm saying if you have something that you tackle worth living for, meaning in a philosophical way, this is worth living for, this you believe that this is taka, what makes you you and what makes you worth something, okay? That's your God. Because that's what you worship. Meaning to say, that's what motivates you to do. And that's what makes you fulfilled. If you do something that lives up to that idea that you have, then you feel good about yourself. That's what worship means. Can we accept that definition? So people worship many gods. If there are there many gods or is there one God? Well, let's wait and see. It depends what people do. In other words, the question is, are there many gods or one God? Is, will everyone be motivated in the same direction, to the same end, or will there be diverse motives and drives within humanity? Okay.
I think one of humanity's biggest bugaboos is himself.
Okay.
Many of us worship ourselves.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Right. I know. Right. You're very interesting here. Okay. So now we have this pasuk that we claim to say, we make this claim that eventually all humanity is going to be on the same page. And here's a very important thing to think about, because I think you started asking before, you said, okay, so what is this business of Hashem Echad? Eventually Hashem's going to be one. Why? Because everyone's just going to come around and say, the Jews are right. It's very silly. No? Seems silly to you, right?
Very, very hard to understand.
Correct.
Like how it
And yeah, why? How?
Okay, I mean, it's also very hard to understand what Mashiach is. Maybe it's an alien, some alien's going to come and tell us.
No. These kinds of things haven't happened thus far. Why should you think it's different? Well, what's happens? There's no reason to say that. The only reason to say that is if you can't make sense out of it. But we're trying to make sense out of it today. So let's see if we can make sense out of it. No, meaning we're trying to make sense out of the Torah without recourse to anything supernatural or alien. So let's see if we can do that, right? In other words, we're trying to explain like this. On the one hand, we have this pasuk that predicts some glorious future. It's an amazing thing. I mean, Emerson, whenever someone says Shema every morning, 5 times a day, he should sit down and start daydreaming and thinking, what is this? Taka, how is this going to happen? Not only that, and I think, because I'm a big Messianist, I think the Rambam and the Ramuna Ramu say that the pasuk is telling you how to live. I think the pasuk is also calling on you to make this happen. Okay, and we'll have to talk about this because we have to get to this whole business of is Rashi's eschatological reading fundamentally different from, let's say, the Rambam? The Rambam says Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad is a mitzvah to believe that Hashem is one. Rashi says, Pasuk doesn't say Hashem is one. Pasuk actually says there's many gods. It says one day in the future Hashem is going to be one. So are these two right? Rambam's philosophical reading and Rashi's eschatological reading. What's the connection? Okay, but going with the eschatological reading, which comes from Chazal in the Zifri, there's other readings in the Zifri, so I'm not sure that this is like the Chazalian reading. There are other ones, but I think what follows from that is you're supposed to read it and you're supposed to start thinking about Hashem making that happen. Okay, and by the way, and like v'ahavta, which means either love. Also, Chazal say ahavta means ahavehu, make Hashem loved. It's a mission. It's a call to arms. It's a call to do something. Okay. So making this prediction, this bold prediction about somehow all humanity is going to come around in some weird way, not clear. We also talk about Molad's Deus Hashem, is how the Nevi'im describe. The Rambam and the Malachim ends with this pasuk. This is the essence of Mashiach. The world's going to be full with Deus Hashem. Okay, so how's that going to happen, right? And not only that, that's going to bring in world peace and all wonderful stuff, right? This is our big besura to humanity. Pretty cool. So you got to never figure out how to do it, and then we're in business, right? No?
It'd be great.
Okay, so we have to. So, kids, what I want to get from this year is understand how this is going to happen. And also, I want to get some action plans. I want to try to get some tachlis to get action plans. So this is not just a shiur. What do you say? You start saying something? You said something?
No, I'm saying I saw from David Shefkin this week,
Yeah.
D-Bash,
Yeah.
that we're waiting for Mashiach. We have no idea what it is. Maybe if we knew it,
Yeah.
we would
I hated that. I wasn't going to start engaging with that. No. Terrible. So, okay. He's a good guy. I like him, and maybe he'll listen to this year. No, but he's a great guy. He's a great guy. We love him very much. But nonetheless, because I love him so much, I will say that I did disagree with that. And I think I do know what Mashiach is. But let's figure out what it is. Let's figure it out. I don't think we're supposed to not know. I think it's a shtickle cop-out to say we don't know, but we're waiting. It's all true descriptively, okay? But prescriptively, Adarabba, it points to a gap in our knowledge. I mean, he said that. He said, like, in 20 years, you never talked about it. Right, Taka. Okay, I talk about it all the time. Anyways, let's go. So kids, what we're trying to figure out, we're trying to figure out how we get there. How is humanity supposed to get there? And what can we do to make that happen? And also, who cares so much about Hashem? Okay, Hashem was going to serve Hashem. Like, okay, why is that so important? Why is that the solution to all of humanity's problems? No? Fair question, right? Unless you say, yeah, Hashem wants everyone to serve him. Okay, fine. And do his mitzvahs. Everyone's going to become Yidden, whatever. Weird stuff, right? Kids, we don't know Pshat. Yeah? These are the questions, right?
Very confused.
Okay, so here's what I'll tell you like this. Right. I want to put it this way, okay? Which is, I'm coming in from a funny way, but it's just how it occurs to me to jump into this. You asked also, right, what is it? Well, hafta follows from echad and a hafta. Okay, let's talk about that even, okay? Echad and a hafta. What's the connection between one and love? There's obviously a very important, obvious connection. Because in as much as love means you unite with what you love. You incorporate what you love into your mind, into your being, into your body. It's physical love. So, of course, there's an association between unity and love. In the simple reading of the pasuk, okay? Should I love Hashem with all my heart and all my soul? Well, look, it depends. If he's my God, but there's other gods. So again, we established what that means already. I dedicate myself to this thing called Hashem, which, by the way, we don't even know what that is, so we have to figure out. That's a shtickle problem here. Okay, We're not so much going to talk about that tonight. Now, what does it mean that the way I defined the various gods before, right? Okay, one guy worships money, one guy worships love, one guy worships power, one guy worships whatever, health, his body. Okay, so what's Hashem? It becomes very important to ask what's Hashem in that paradigm, right? But I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do that because we could skip that question for now. What?
That's also the Hashem Lekecha. The other question I asked, whether it's each one of us, is it our God?
Right.
Meaning, I worship this Hashem, but it's not.
Okay.
Maybe because I have a different understanding. It's a very different thing than you worship as Hashem. When you think of when you say Hashem Lekecha.
Yeah.
The God
Oh yeah, right. You asked that also, right? That was a question also. Right. You asked that question also.
Understand God.
Yeah. Like you were asking before, what about other monotheists? So like, what are we finding them
Even
for?
outside of that, even the two of us. Again, we have a different understanding of who Hashem is.
Right.
Why Hashem came.
Right. So this is right, exactly. So you're asking, especially because I refuse to define what Hashem means, right? So okay, I could talk about every other God, but for Hashem, we're going to call it 70 other gods. Okay.
You're going to Rambam.
Without what?
Says you can't describe
Exactly. That's a very important idea. In other words, Yutaka can't talk about Yudike Vavke.
There's not enough words. There's not enough.
Seder. So what is it? Okay. So what is it? Yeah. I mean, so what is it? Okay.
Everything and more.
Okay. Listen. Let's not. Let's try to get somewhere. No, I mean to say you want to learn Monavuchim, go learn Monavuchim. We're trying to see what it means on mice. No, Adrab. You have to learn Monavuchim, of course. The new Monavuchim makes it even easier. Okay, but I want to try to solve that problem. Now, I want to talk about. I want to get to Hashem Echad without defining Hashem. Okay, and I think it's very important to do it that way, actually, because let's flip the pasuk around. Okay, let's say instead of thinking about it like, okay, there's lots of gods, as in there's lots of motivations, and then there's this motivation called Yud Kei Vav Kei, and guess what? Everyone could like that the most. Okay, so like I said, again, if we're going to look at it that way, we have to talk about what does Yud Kei Vav Kei mean, and we also have to figure out Vasepis everyone's going to like that the most. Vasepis, that's going to, why was humanity going to change? Like, well, why that weird things going to happen? So I want to say like this, let's flip it around. Let's say Hashem Echad means just the opposite. Just forget about Hashem. Let's just focus on Echad. Echad means humanity will reach the point that they will all be motivated by the same thing. Okay, so then forget about what is that thing. That's what we call Hashem. Okay, but we don't have to start with Hashem. We don't have to start with Hashem. Now we define what worship means and having a God means. So Hashem Echad just means that humanity is flailing around, meaning there's this idea, there's that idea, there's all sorts of motivations. And remember, everyone's motivation, of course, is based on some sort of paradigm of reality. So when the pasuk is saying Echad, forget about Hashem, the pasuk is saying that there is, theoretically, this latent motivation, right? Because that's what a God means. A God means a motivation. There is a sort of motivation that can unite humanity. Okay? So then when we say, it's not like, oh, why will this one win out? It's not why will this one win out. It's an observation not about one as opposed to the other. It's an observation that humanity is making progress, basically. It's basically saying that the various, let's say, misunderstandings of the world, and by the way, why I say misunderstandings? Because this pasuk is assuming that there is some unity in reality that humanity will eventually find. And then when they find that, they'll find it to such an extent, and it will be so strong that they will no longer be motivated. Yeah, they'll no longer be motivated by lemachem. Okay, so I think the first we solved the shtickle problem that the pasuk doesn't mean that all of a sudden everyone's going to become Jewish and start putting on tefillin. Like, that's not the point. Maybe they will put on tefillin because maybe they should. Maybe they shouldn't because tefillin says Yitzis Mitzrayim, then leave Mitzrayim. These are interesting questions, but not important for us. What the pasuk is saying is that in the current world, there's all sorts of types of people and all sorts of types of motivations. And that is not going to go on forever because Well, let's talk about, how to facilitate that. But because eventually humanity will converge in terms of their most fundamental value, will converge. And once it converges, that's a siman that they're serving Hashem. That's a key point. This is, I think, why it's really not so important to define Hashem. Like the Torah never defines it, right? Basically. It's really not so important to define Hashem. Because the Torah doesn't care so much about, what the Torah cares about most? Not worshiping Elohim Acherim. That's like the worst thing in the world. And the way we said it just now, what that really means is that you're supposed to have a driver to worship a God that makes everything else pale in comparison or be uninteresting.
Yeah, but again, like we said, it's unique to each person.
No, so 1 second. So here's the answer to your question.
Here's
the answer to your question.
Go ahead.
No, here's the answer to your question. Here's the answer to the question. This is why world peace it has to do with this whole business. How do I know I'm serving Hashem? Okay, here's a question. How do I know I just said I'm not defining Hashem for you. So how do I know I'm serving Hashem? I'll tell you how you know. If you're not serving Hashem, meaning to say, if you're not torn, if you have a unity in your being, an ahava b'chol lev b'chol nefesh b'chol ma'od, is a siman that you're serving Hashem. Because if you were serving Baal, let's call Baal the god of war. I don't know. Okay, and again, what does the god of war mean? It means I see war, strife as fundamental to the human condition, and I think war has to be honored because I see war as the force and the purpose of humanity. I don't know, whatever. Read some pagan stuff that, read Nazi stuff. I don't know, whatever. Okay? That's legit. What does it mean it's legit? It means that's a good God. Say that. Good God. You should bring him sacrifices. You should shecht kids to it. And you're going to be successful as an ovid war. But you know what's going to happen to you? You're not going to be committed enough because if you're going to confront some guy from India who worships water, I don't know, in Ganges River place, right? Right. And that's going to be compelling. So you're going to worship Elohim Acherim, meaning Acherim from your God. But there is a model of humanity that has a consistency of Leiv, Nefesh, and Ma'od. And when the humanity is holding there, that means they're serving Yud Kivavki. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So the siman that you're serving Yud Kivavki is that you're not serving Elohim Acherim. That's what Elohim Acherim is like the most important thing. Yeah. And the siman that you're serving Yud Kivavki is that you have Leiv, Nefesh, Ava, B'chol Leiv, B'chol Nefesh, B'chol Ma'od, right? So now, that's why you asked before, I don't think we stated this question, let's state it again, if you have other monotheists, so, yet they're killing us, these crazy monotheists, right? Nutcases. Teretz is that we don't consider them to be Ovid Hashem L'daiti. Right. Because they don't have Ava B'chol Leiv B'chol Nefesh Moed. In other words, like this. You'll have, let's say, a Chazal. I told you before, if a guy worships money, quote unquote, worships money, are we going to stone him for doing Avodah Zarah? No, not unless he makes a little dollar bill and he bows to it. Till he does that, we're not going to kill him. But we're going to give a shmooze, he's Avodah Zarah and this and that, right? Okay, but that Avodah Zarah is very, very important. Because that's a siman that he's not Avodah Hashem. You ask him, is there one God? He'll tell you he's one God. Okay, because you learn Nevuchim, you learn Aristotle, you think there's one God, you don't even know what you're talking about. Because you know what the Torah really cares about? Elohim Acherim. And you're doing Elohim Acherim. Yes, you technically didn't do it because you didn't bow it. Who are then the chevra that kill people in the name of one God? They're Ovid Avodah Zarah. This is a very important point. So someone's going to say, "How you talking? We have a problem with people that are big miyachtim." The teretz is kol hakoyes kilu Avodah Zarah, face whatever. And when Chazal say these kilus, they're very, very, very important because this is what it means. It means that actually we really care about. We really care about these deep stuff that are really psychological and beneath the surface. Either Torah doesn't make such a fuss out of that. I don't know. The law doesn't make a fuss out of that. The law cares about how it looks. This is something to think about. The law cares about how it looks until the guy actually takes his glider, right? What they come in, those paragliders. Until the Muslim actually takes his paraglider and bows to it, we're not going to give him skila. We won't give you skila, but you kill Avodah Zarah because you're not holding by Ava B'chol Leiv B'chol Nefesh B'chol Ma'od. In other words, you don't have a unity in your being. There's more than one thing that motivates you.
Again, but I think
you see? The one God, I don't care how much you miyachad Allah. It doesn't help. It doesn't help me. It's not interesting to me.
100%. But
You're clear with it.
my only point is that the way what unity means to you versus what unity means.
No, it doesn't matter what it means. It doesn't matter what it means. That's what you do.
I'm sorry.
That's what you do.
Sure, but again, even if we're both trying to be right?
That doesn't mean anything. No, it doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything.
Right?
Doesn't mean anything. You just said a meaningless statement. I'll tell you why. Because what does that mean? If we, I don't care what you're trying. It doesn't matter what you're trying. No, trying doesn't help. Trying doesn't help. All we have to figure out is your life unified? That means to say, can there be one explanation for everything you do?
Right.
Or are you, like most people, torn between various gods? Right? That's the thing. So all the learning and everything is only a means, all the trying is a means to get you there, but you're either there or you're not there. Now, you might ask me a question, how do you know a person's there? Okay? How do you know a person's there? Okay, for that we have to study you. Tell me about your life. I'm going to analyze you, and I'm going to see if I can make one unified picture of it, or I'm going to have to admit that, you know what, this action and that action are not consistent.
Right.
That means you serve two gods. Okay? And you know what happens if action A and action B is not consistent? You know what happens then? If you do two actions not consistent, well, maybe your neighbor is not consistent with you. So maybe there's going to be a war. Because if you're doing A and B, and maybe he's doing B and A, or maybe he's doing C and D, and then, boom, you guys can't get along. Right? Mashenkin, if you're consistent, and he's consistent, then you're doing the same thing. That's what it means you're all serving Hashem. And that's why there's world peace. And that's why there's prosperity, because humanity is awesome as long as they can get themselves onto one page. And I think it's extremely important to stress that it's not the pshat. And this is going back to not defining Hashem. I think it's a very good idea not to define Hashem, because to think like, oh, you know what? We have the one doctrine that's going to work. Like, okay, so totalitarianism. For kids, you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Right? That's not the point.
Totalitarian.
Thank you. I love that. The test. The tough.
Yes.
T. Totalitarianism, just this time it's going to be the good God. Like, doesn't help anything. Because no one even knows what Hashem is anyways. So, like, that's the teretz. So that's what some people do. I don't know, Shav mitzvahs or whatever, or Torah mitzvahs. That's not the point. It's not capturing the Vart. And no one's going to capture the Vart. Because there's no Vart. That's Akshama. To say Hashem is XYZ is a big mistake. He's nothing. That's what Rambam says. He's nothing. I can't talk about him. So what could we do? We could worship.
We both get to the same place. The point is we both get to the same place.
Who, me and you? Exactly.
Hashem get to the same place.
Right.
It doesn't matter how we get there,
Right.
but eventually we get to the same place.
Right. And the
exactly
simon that you're in the same place is that you're at peace with yourself, and everything in life is love, because there are no strife, there's no conflict, and there's no conflict with the neighbor either. No conflict with the neighbor, there's no war. Obviously, there's tremendous prosperity because everyone's working on the same team all of a sudden. It's great. And another reason why it's more prosperity is because the deepest, and this we're getting to a little bit better, a little more of a fun of what's going on here. The deeper understanding of reality, the better we understand reality, the more we converge on unity. Okay? Now let's talk about, you have what I'm saying with that, basically? In other words, let's talk about scientific understanding first, okay? The better our scientific understanding of being, the closer we get to a unity of the universe, because all explanation is unifying, because explanation says these things that seem disparate as different are really all part of the same cause. So all good explanation is brings us closer to Hashem scientifically. Again, all good scientific explanation. Navas, not every scientific explanation for reality necessarily translates into our psyche. Okay? Because what we're talking about till now, we're talking about motivations. And then there is a correspondence of it. You have to understand there is a correspondence. Because ultimately what motivates a person, what does motivate a person? Where does a person get his motivation from? From being. From the universe. Yeah? Which means that your understanding of the universe is it carries over into how you live. That's why I always say this, that everyone does Valachta B'drachav. Everyone does Valachta B'drachav. I don't think anyone doesn't do Valachta B'drachav. The only shaila is what they understand of Drach Hashem. The kid who's abused, he does Valachta B'drachav also. He's like, oh, this is a terrible world. It's a terrible world. I'll also be terrible. Sure. So in other words, so therefore, in that sense, the deeper our understanding of being, of reality, the more unified we are in our motivations. So in other words, let's take an extreme guy, okay? He knows no science. He doesn't have any science. He has no concept of science, let's say. So one day, there's an earthquake. Another day, it rains and the crops are successful. Okay, 1 year the crops are successful, 1 year not. So he's like, look. So sometimes he's going to be angry, sometimes he's going to be happy, sometimes he's going to be an evil person because he's emulating his own experiences. He starved for 1 year, let the other guy starve too. Why? Because he can't make sense. He has no unified theory to explain both of these events, right? The more you have a unified theory, now I'm talking about scientifically, let's say, the more you have a unified theory to explain both events scientifically, the more you realize that there's some unity to the universe. Now, what we really care about for the human is moral unity. So this has to be explored a little more. How does the unity of my morals, unity of my psyche, follow from a unity of understanding? Okay? How do those two things relate? So that we have to think about. I'm going to leave that for now. But the point is that any progress in understanding, in the long run, you could have scientific progress, obviously it takes people away from Hashem. Why? Because, I don't know, they think it's a stira to God, whatever, basically mistakes. Oh, they discovered evolution, now they think, so there's no creationism. Okay, whatever, don't worry about that. That's not the point. Again, that's not the point. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about kfira, I'm talking about Hashem. And Hashem means now, what do you worship? And see, back in the day, everyone worshipped something, and I think...
That's actually a very different word.
Wait, I just want to say one knage. Used to be everyone had a God, right? And now some people don't have a God. But you see what I said before? I said we don't really care about whether you daven. I mean, of course we care about you daven. I'm saying in your neinu, this is not about what do you bow to, what do you pray to. This is about what are you motivated by. Ki'ilu Oved Avodah Zarah is actually matters a lot more than Oved Avodah Zarah in terms of where humanity is going. In terms of halacha, in terms of whether to give a skila, no. Yes, don't do Avodah Zarah. Okay, but in terms of the bigger questions of where are we holding, are we getting close to Mashiach or not, depends how many people are Ki'ilu Avodah Zarah, okay? So therefore, by that measure, everyone has a God. Everyone has a Ki'ilu God. Even the atheist is motivated by something. So if he's motivated by that which is unified, then he's Ki'ilu Avodah Hashem. He's not Avodah Hashem because he doesn't put on tefillin, he doesn't bow to Hashem. Okay, and he should do that Avodah Hashem. Why is it important to be Avodah Hashem? Well, we'll have to learn the Rambam. Mitzvahs. Why is it important? Why did Torah give us mitzvahs? Torah gave us mitzvahs. Hashem wants us to do actions, not just to have a mindset. Whatever that is. But he's Ki'ilu, he has Hashem. So everyone's handling the same shaylas. The big mistake that everyone makes is that they think that like Judaism is going to come in. We have this weird idea, and like everyone should also do it. And say, no, of course not. No, but what we're dealing with is what everyone is really handling in the deepest way. Okay, everyone is dealing with what God is saying. Yeah, so you're about to say something.
I was going to say atheists. They're even not having a God. That is their worship.
That could be. But here's the thing. I think most atheists are not really. I don't think they're really atheists by the best measures.
I'm also an atheist. I don't believe there's a God over here.
Right, exactly. Right, I'm saying most atheists are just atheists in the God of Agshama. Okay, we moved past that a long time ago. Get over it. Whatever. Okay, the kids, you hear what's going on over here? A little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, now we got to figure out tachlis. Let's get tachlis here. So what can we do, right? That's what I want to figure out. How do we accelerate? What's it called? Accelerationist? What's an accelerationist? You know, such a thing in tech, no? People want to make processes go quicker. I don't know, whatever. Okay, Shane. So, of course, we can't do the chikas akates for states. But the question is like this. The question is, now we understand a little bit this prediction of Hashem Echad. Okay, so you understand it? You got it? Again, and the biggest measure of it is if the Adam gets along. And I don't mean to cop out. I don't mean to give a cop out. I don't mean to say that you can't measure it objectively. Probably you could. Like I said before, if I sit down and you tell me, everything you do, if you go to a good therapist and you tell him every single thing you did, and he finds that, deep down there's one vart over here, one core thing, and that core thing, by the way, will not only explains everything you did, but will withstand any challenge too, right? If I could say, like, look, I see, let's say a guy has a blissful life, and mainly acts kach v'kach, and I say, oh, everything is unified. But I could also be mishayir that if he would chas v'shalom lose his money and get sick, he wouldn't be able to keep his faith, meaning faithfulness. He wouldn't be able to act in a way that's consistent. So that means he's not right? That's the point of afilu, because the point is, if you want a good test, it's not just enough to look at the past and say, can I make one story out of this guy? I have to be able to predict the future too. And that's why it's important to go through this exercise of to be nefesh, because you have to face it, at least in your mind. Otherwise, you're fooling yourself. You see? Okay? So it's not that Hashem wants these demands from us and like, oh, give up your life. It's not the point. The point is, it's a mental exercise. That's saying Shema is a mental exercise. Am I holding by Hashem Echad? Now, going back a little bit to the Rambam, I just want to comment on that. Rashi says the pasuk is saying one day Hashem is going to be the only God, right? And the Rambam says Hashem is the only God. In other words, it's not steer because the Rambam is talking philosophy, and Rashi is talking bepoil, right? But the truth is the two things actually go together, because the reason why it's true, why is it true that eventually humanity is going to all be motivated in one thing? Only because that's only true if there's actually a deep unity in being. What if being is taka ununified? What if there are many gods? Meaning, what if taka being is made up of a bunch of different principles that don't come together? Okay? So we'll discover that. We'll know that. And then one guy's going to take this, one guy's going to take that, one guy's going to take that. The reason why everyone's going to coalesce around one concept is because as we evolve and learn more, we're going to discover more and more unity in reality. Okay? So you see, these are the two things.
I think it's also important that first comes unity, then comes the world peace.
Yeah, what do you mean by that? Right, yeah.
Like, meaning,
it depends on
the symptom of the unity. Without the unity,
100%.
You can't have world peace and say, oh, now we're all united.
No,
then
exactly.
You take away the world peace and suddenly unity disappears.
Yeah. No, in other words, it's also this. You have to understand. There's causes for war. The ultimate causes for war are because we have different value systems. There's ultimate causes because if we actually had the same value, so someone would agree.
Right.
You think you should have the water. I think I should have the water. You think I should have the land. You should. Why? What's that? But my kamiflagi must be the shirish that you. At a minimum, it's like you were saying. At a minimum, it's because you worship yourself. And I worship myself or something, right? But if we both care the most about the highest truth, then it would trickle down to the same answer about who should get this water, or who should get this land. You see, world peace is downstream from Hashem Echad, from there. Okay. So I want to just talk about briefly. Let's get some b'payil. Okay, how can we bring Mashiach l'maisa? Some practical ideas. Well, I have to have one practical idea maybe. But I want to just talk about one thing, and this gets to the role of the Jews, the very difficult, challenging role of the Jews. Okay, there's this idea, I write about this and speak about this in my farm on Purim. But kids, there's a day called Shivim L'Shainis. The day called the Shivim L'Shainis is the 70, basically, there are these 70 sarim, says the Ramban, and every language has its own sar, every language has its own culture, every language has its own way of thinking about reality. And again, what that means is that every people, every nation, whatever, every people has what they worship. In other words, has their something that's their fundamental truth. Okay? And that's a reality. Again, it doesn't mean, by the way, that you could draw a line on the map and say, everyone in this line is that. You know, it's a big mish. But conceptually, point is that there are 70, maybe 70 is not a real number, but there's various drivers, humans that rise to the level of a god, right? Not everything. I'm hungry, I eat. That's not a god. I think I should eat. I think it's appropriate. That's already shtickle god, right? If I don't think that it's appropriate that I should eat, but I think that there's some, let's say, I think that it's appropriate that people should have what they want. That's like a higher god. What if I think that it's appropriate that things should be just? Oh, so it's not only what you want, it's also not, that's already a shtickle higher god. You can have like hierarchies, okay? And then if there's something that's kollel everything, one idea that's kollel all manhai and haga could be subsumed into that one motivation. That's called Hashem Echad. Fine. Now the Shivim Sarim, as I said before, I'll tell you all the Shivim Sarim. love, money, power, but I won't tell you what Hashem is. Okay, which means to say that something very important, that it's not the pshat we're going to discover one idea that, we know 70 things. And it tells us it's the 71st thing, and it's the best. Kids say that's just another God. That's not what's going on over here. That's not what's going on with the Jews. And this is why the Jews have such a problem living in this world, that's because what we're doing is we're not saying our God, like Yisro said, God Hashem Mikol Elikim. It's sort of, we're not doing that. I mean, I'm not getting involved with what Yisro meant, but I'm saying is, actually in a certain sense, we're not doing that. We're not saying it's Hashem is better than everyone else. We're saying like this. We're saying we're not playing that game. Mm-hmm. Everyone's playing the game of what their God is. We're not playing that game. We're not saying what our God is. I'm never going to say what our God is.
Leave us alone. Let's do what we want. That's all we're saying. Leave us alone.
No, forget about that. No, we're not saying that. That's just it. We're not saying that. We want to be Mashiach. We want to fix the whole world. No, not true. Adrab. No, but here's the part. What I mean to say is we're not saying, whatever. This is why the Jews are so problematic. We're not saying that Hashem is X, Y, Z, and this is the best idea. So what are we saying, right? We're saying there is something that we can't define that's above all this. What?
And we all have to strive for it.
We all have to strive for it.
And the striving is the point.
Striving is the point, and you'll know it when we're there. This is crazy. Yeah. Crazy people, the Jews. And what that means is, what does it mean to strive for it? Okay, strive means strife, right? To say if you're striving for something, right? But I'm saying the strife. Anytime you're striving, the strife, because when we say we're striving for something else, that means we're in strife with whatever is present. Whatever we could explain, whether it's this, all 70 things. No, we're passel everything. We passel every single thing, which means we're not masking to every single thing. We don't integrate with every single thing, with any single thing. Okay.
So you see, that's
this is the Jewish problem.
That's how I understand Shabbos. We tell the whole world.
Yeah.
From the whole world.
Yeah. Happens to be.
Nothing matters. Shabbos. All goes away.
Yeah, it happens to be Reish Shabbos. It happens to be, at least in the Rambam. I gave this series about Chiddush Olam and the Meira. The whole idea of Chiddush Olam, which is so important to the Torah according to the Rambam, is for this reason. Because Chiddush Olam means that the whole world, Batson doesn't have to exist, but a punk does. You know what that means? That means one big on to every single thing that exists. Because you could show me anything, I say, yeah, but you know that once upon a time it didn't exist. That changes everything. If you believe the world always existed, you have respect for lots of things. 70 in that expression of the 70 son. We don't have respect for any of those 70 things because we say everything is contingent, nothing has to be. Yet it exists. How? Not because it's a 71st thing that we're going to explain to you. No, because, I don't know. So it's a striving, like I said. It's always going towards. It's a journey. There is a getting there, and it's a great interesting thing to think about. What does the getting there look like? Okay, now that we're, I have a tzad. I will parenthetically say this: that the whole concept of Yemos Mashiach is that we're always getting closer. Till Yemos Mashiach, we can go this and then go that and take bad detours and go off. And Yemos Mashiach is that the directionality is going to be the same. Okay, because I don't know if there's ever any getting there. The getting there is that you're just not going backwards. That might be the whole getting there, okay? But very important. Not getting backwards means there's no wars. Everything is only proceeding, is getting better. Because we're getting deeper and deeper. But we're looking for, and this is why the Jews have such a problem in the world, is because the Jews passel everything in order to say that there's something higher, okay? Masha Enke and the non-Jews, they have their sarim, which means to say, this is getting a little interesting. We'll have to be maybe somewhat brief over here, because whatever, we'll wrap it up. What it means to say they actually fit into this world. This world is for them. In other words, let me just be clear about this. There are two approaches to let's say Hashem Echad. Either you could passel everything, say this motivation, that motivation, gonish, worthless, right? Or you could do something a little bit more complicated. You could say that motivation, that God of yours, it's cool. But it's part of a what?
Not the end game.
It's not the end game. It's part of something bigger. Okay? Now, that's the difference between that's the role of Yisrael and Amim. Amim, they're the Sarim, yes. Yisrael, who is not getting into any particular Sar, he's this stands above the fray. This is what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to stand above the fray, and the fact that we stand above the fray allows us to influence everyone and tell them there's a bigger picture. So you need this one nation that doesn't fit into this world in order to tell everyone who does fit into this world, guys, can we bring this and find something else? What?
We didn't quite get there yet.
You didn't quite get there yet. But they're coming from a different place. The nations are coming from their Sar, and we're coming from this utter rejection of the Sar. So it's a little bit of a different, okay, think about then how that works. So anyway, so what are we supposed to do about this? This is Hashem Echad. This is how we get to Hashem Echad. We get to from Ayin to Dal to Hashem Echad. I think Shema, I think people say the Ayin of Shema, I think it has to do with this 70 Psalm. It starts with 70 and we're supposed to bring it down to 1, okay? So how do we do this, right? So first of all, this is why it's very difficult to be a Jew, because the Jews are not supposed to be like one of the nations. This is the thing. We have to it's very weird, because we have to not be like one of the nations. This is why it's so important that the Jews should not be like one of the nation, because the whole purpose of the Jew is to transcend this worldliness, okay? So that's the first thing. You have to be comfortable with that, or whatever, or, I don't know, accept it. Cultivate it. I don't know. But here's what I want to do. There's something called yichudim, right? Yichudim means like uniting things. Now you can understand a little bit what uniting things means, because it goes like this. Let's say you have two nations, and you understand this nation's about that and this nation's about that, right? But you, as a Jew, have a higher perspective. You're able to see that this is all part of a bigger picture. So the way you're supposed to influence these people, bring them closer to Hashem Echad, is to make them realize how both of those are actually contributing to something higher. You see that? No, you don't see how to do that? Okay. You have one nation that's into power. Another nation's into health. And you're the Jew, and you're like, neither of these are interesting, right? So rather what? Rather both of these lead us to something else. But you can't say where they lead us to, because this is another thing, right? But you could provide the direction, to show how these two values have a point where they go towards. Okay, how do you do that? How do you do that? And that's very. I guess right. I didn't explain that. I think I'm not going to explain that. You have to look. I wrote that in Psach Lakim. If you basically the problem is like this: if you have A and B, and you don't have C, you don't know what C is. How could you show that A and B are united if you don't even know what the C is? Okay, right? Okay, that's a deeper problem. I think we'll leave that because let's wrap it up now. Okay, now just state the problem we're leaving it with. How is a Jew supposed to unite? How could you tell two different people of two different value systems? How can you influence them to say that both of their value systems are derived from a third secret thing, without saying what that secret is? Maybe if you could say what it is to show how really, you really don't care about this, really care about that. Okay, I mean the answer in short.
I think that's the point. The point is it's a journey. Right,
exactly. That's what I was going to say. See, we're playing two games over here because the main game of history doesn't happen because we're giving a shir here on Thursday night and manipulating it. The main game happens because the Jews are Jews. Which means to say is that since they stand for something otherworldly, right? I think, is that what you're saying? That's like happens? In other words, the Jew stands for something otherworldly, and therefore that, through osmosis and through influence, leads the worldly things to look a little further, look a little higher, okay? And that's something that happens with time. However, I think there's also ways to manipulate this. In other words, there are ways, to write the equations, as it were, and show how two things that seem to be conflicting, how looked at from a certain way, they can looked at as being things that come from an unknown root, can be made to be united. Okay, this is a little more complicated, but I want to leave with a tachlistic thing. I hold that it's time to teach this to programs. This is what I hold. I hold we have to take the what's it called, AI, such as it is, and we have to teach basically to look for these value paradigms. We could make up the 70 ones and look for them and find texts and ways of acting that reflect them. And we could also have programs writing code as ways to unify them, which is basically our job, and ways to nudge to move things further. This is my practical advice. So any tech guys, get in touch with me. We'll figure this out. Because I do know, because even though I wasn't married about that point about how we can manipulate the unities, I have a way to do that. I know what the equation is.
What we're coming out with is that the point of everything is the journey. is the trip is not, again.
No, but not the point is the journey. What do you mean by that? What do you mean the point is the journey? The point is to get someplace where we are unified, internally.
Yes, but even when you get there, we're still not done.
Well, I don't know, because you could always get deeper.
Let's say you worship money, right?
Let's say
you worship money.
So I'm not unified
Will
because
you ever get to have enough money?
no.
Because you're always trying again. You're driving. You're motivated.
No, that's your big mistake. No, but that's your big mistake.
Not to the journey itself.
No.
It's this end goal that you can never reach because you can never fill the holes.
Right, but if I'm worshiping,
instead you appreciate the journey.
No, but here's the thing. If I worship something, you know what that means? That means every single circumstance, I still have the same motivation.
Right.
So what do you mean I'm never ended? I'm always in the same place.
Could you ever get to that?
Get where?
Meaning, could you ever get to that point? Or yes, you're always doing it, but how do you get there?
Yes.
You're always doing it is by doing it for the journey, not for the end result.
Why? Why are you saying that? I don't know. Why is that? Why can't here the end result is not to amass something. The end result is to have a state of mind where my whole motivation is unified. Well, no one could find contradictions in me, not practically in my past, and not theoretically if I would have to invest in nefesh.
Right.
Okay. Why are you saying that's unreachable? I don't know. Maybe that is reachable. I would agree. It could always get. Maybe you could say like this: in as much as we can never, if we can never discover the truth, the full truth, which I think that's probably true. So there's always more depth of yichud that we can understand. So we can always be moisef ava, I would say, right? Always moisef ava. Right. Wait, but you see, but I think it's important. Even though a person could always be moisef ava, I think there still might be a cutoff point where a person is ki'ovid avazah and a person is not ki'ovid avazah anymore. Oh, you want to know, could be moisef ava? Yes, but I think we could. That's another way to define. What's the difference between moisef Mashiach and now if we're never going to have the full echad? The answer is no. We'll have enough echad that even though there could always be more clarity and focus, we're still not ki'ovid avazah because the nafkamina is that for 1 second you Messiah das. Nafkamina is not that you went and killed your neighbor. Nafkamina is not that you were dishonest. Nafkamina is not that you said lashon. Nafkamina is right. The nafkamina is you weren't so deep. Okay, but that avad is always better, right? It's always better, but it's not. But it has no ramifications for what the Torah is concerned about, which is peace, prosperity. So therefore, that's called Mashiach. That's called you made it. I don't agree with you, and I think that another way to say it would be you're not ki'ovid avazah.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing that you can't make it. I'm just saying that the way you make it, I think, is by getting to this unifying point where your entire existence is not about the end game, but about the trip to get there.
It's about
the trip to get there.
Yeah, well, I think what you're saying. I think what you're pointing to is every end game being definable is necessarily one of the Shem Sarim.
Yeah, one of the seven. Exactly.
Right. No. So now, you raised a good question. I don't like your answer, but I think I see what you're bothering. But I don't think your answer is correct because you're raising a point over here, which is how do I know where to go? How do I know where to go? In other words, the fact that we describe the end, which is you want to be unified. Okay, how do I get there? But if you tell me go worship Baal, go worship money, I know how to worship money. Right. But you tell me worship Hashem, you're not telling me what Hashem is. How am I supposed to get there? Okay, good. This is a good question. That's what's bothering you. I don't like your answer because you're not really answering. You're saying it's a journey.
I think you get
okay, journey where? What am I doing?
To get there.
How? What? Okay, so tell me what to do. No, so tell me what to do. What do I do? Okay, Torah mitzvahs, say they're fine.
Yeah, fine, but again,
yeah. Okay, this is what the whole Torah is. This is what the whole Nevi'im. Kids, the whole Nevi'im and Torah is trying to train us to get there. And then they understand what the Torah is trying to do, at least, right? Torah mitzvahs. I'm saying, but Torah mitzvahs apparently is going to get us to this day, to this state. Torah mitzvahs is not the state. Torah mitzvahs is going to get us to the state. Okay? Because you could do Torah mitzvahs and be ki'ovid avazah, but you're supposed to Torah mitzvahs and get to the point where you're... Okay, I think this is...
Torah mitzvahs helps you make the right choice.
Yeah, I've had it. Now,
it's to make choices, right?
Of course. Look, now we have a little understanding of what we're supposed to look for in Torah mitzvahs, at least, right?
We're supposed to use it as a blueprint to make the choice, to make the best choice we can make with whatever information we have, and then execute on that choice. So I think this was helpful, no? Yeah.
So we have a plan. I know we have a practical plan. Whatever. I need my tech people, and I have to